I'm James and I'm an applications engineer here at National Instruments UK. This week I've been working with the NI myDAQ on a project called myOpAmp Lab. The idea of this project is to show how a student can complete a lab at home using just the NI myDAQ, the breadboard, an application and some cheap components. The lab teaches students all about feedback configurations in op-amp circuits and the changes of gain with different values of resistors.
So this is what the student sees when they start their application. They start off with 4 theory slides, and the first one talking about just the basics of op-amps. They learn about the inverting, non-inverting inputs, their different characteristics, and how they would look in real life, along with power rails, etc. They can then move through the different theory slides using these 2 buttons at the bottom. For here, the next one, theory op-amp configurations. Now they just see a few different configurations of op-amps, including the non-inverting op-amp, which is what they're going to be using for this lesson. It shows them what the op-amp will do from the input to the output, and then they can go on to the next slide to look at gain derivations. Here they can learn how the input changes over the op-amp to the output, what the gain derivation is. They're going to get tested on this later in the lesson. The next slide is clipping. This just shows some more theory of the op-amp, why clipping occurs and the results that they might see. They're also going to observe this later in the lesson when they actually acquire the data. So the next bit goes on to the hands-on section, and this is how they would create a schematic in NI Multisim. This just walks them through the process and they can see what schematic they need to create to complete this lesson. They can simulate and run it so that they can see what it would look like in a simulation, and then later they're going to see what it looks like in the real world. This is how to wire it up on a breadboard. It's a very simple circuit, just using one op-amp, one resistor and one variable resistor. Now they can take a short quiz. This quiz just asks them how to get a gain of 1 out of this a gain of 10 out of this configuration of an op-amp circuit. So here I've already put in the correct values for the feedback and for this ground resistor. If they were to get it wrong, they can't see the answer. If they were to get it right, they'd see a sketch of the output showing a gain of 10 against an input of 1. Now they can move on to actually acquiring their data from the circuit they've just wired up connected to their myDAQ. This explains how they're going to acquire the data and also some questions that they're going to need to answer. So to begin the acquisition here, when I turn the variable resistor, we can get from a gain of 1 all the way up to a gain of 10, and then they can see clipping. The student can then stop the acquisition, change their circuit around, and begin it again. We can stop the acquisition and change which wave we want to generate, for example a sawtooth wave, maybe a square wave. They can then stop the acquisition, change the amplitude, frequency, phase or duty cycle, or go back through the other sections of the lesson.